on the way to the hospital to see your new daughter.
Hello.
Hello.
I might have added text supporting for
Basically, out to the water.
Okay.
You can see house
Yes.
need to do again.
Could you add a link to that in the chat?
Wharf is paid from the go to boarding school.
Possibly.
You'd have to find the stream on my channel first.
Okay, I will find stream on.
Hello everyone. So, those who are coming from my channel, you'll know we started this on my channel, and there are questions going on Discord on my Discord server with a Q&A. So the questions are going to be kept to going to that place, and so we have them all stored in one place, and on a big laptop screen in front of us to make it nice and easy to read off.
Come on, focus, you stupid thing.
Yeah.
There we go.
But my camera died, so
Plus we've also got people on my channel who'll be watching. And here comes the sun.
Yay!
so you not only have working battery, but you have sun.
Yes,
Seriously,
I have.
get far too
I've summoned the sun.
Oh, goodness gracious me!
He really does think it shines out his ass.
Get away.
No, because then I wouldn't get a sunshine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get a suntan then. Hello everyone. So yes, so this is kind of a combined stream thing.
Yeah.
People think there seems to be a lack of boat. There's not a lack of boat. I will switch this round. Behold, Narvik. So that is Narvik fjord, and if you can just about see the detail just off to the right, above the street on the right, that's the bridge to Rombox fjord, where the Georgthila is. That's the sun, in case you hadn't noticed, and that's Narvik harbour, and that's the rail station for all the iron ore, which is what started all of this fighting. There we go. Now you don't have to look directly at the sun, but we do. Good grief, it's
Hence
bright.
the hat.
When is sunset? July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello everyone. So yes, this is kind of, we've got myself, we've got Dr. Clark, we've got Medic Dan floating off to one side. It's got the camera's got slightly different view, to be honest, compared there.
Yeah.
Oh, I need some of these. I can't see anything.
We pretty much can't actually see the laptop screen. Actually, I'm just going to
The questions, the laptop screen gets brighter, luckily, so yes. And the questions are coming through on the laptop screen quite well in some ways.
So
We have some.
I'm going to. We'll have random Norwegian people going in the background because we're on the balcony of the hotel, however many hundred feet above.
Were the battleships and ships sunk during the Battle of Narvik salvaged and by who?
From
Carrot 1151.
So most of the ships sunk in the Battle of Narvik are still there. The wreck of Georgthila is visible, but that's the only one that's actually still above water. All the others are underwater to varying degrees. There's actually a fair few you can dive to. They're within 20-30 feet of the surface, but it's cold, so you need dry suits, obviously, because we're well above the Arctic Circle.
No, we will be going swimming in trunks.
One or two that went down more towards the middle of the fjord, like Eskimo's Bow, are quite deep. But the only ones, as far as I'm aware, the only ones that have actually been deliberately moved were the ones that were sunk in Narvik harbour over there during what I call the second battle of Narvik, what inferior histories call the first battle, because they like to ignore the whole thing about, Eidsvold and Norge and that kind of stuff. But the one where the H-class destroyers came in and went into the harbour, so
The second battle.
the German destroyers and merchant ships that were sunk in the second battle were salvaged because they were in the harbour getting away. The merchant ships were scrapped. The 3 destroyers they picked up were taken around the headland and dumped next to Eidsvold's wreck, which is literally directly behind the camera over this ridge.
And there's a tug in Oslo harbour that was sunk and salvaged, and is still afloat.
Yeah, but all the big warships are down there in some way or other.
Yeah. And then we have, can you navigate a submarine like a Type 9 or a Gator class while on periscope depth through the fjord? Probably, but I wouldn't like to.
Yeah, I mean down the middle, where it's nice and deep. But yeah, it's a fjord. It's a former glacier path, so it's like this. So really, really nice and deep down. I mean, there were U-boats waiting for Warspite with dodgy magnetic detonators because Warspite has plot armor, so they were able to stay submerged. But
Ships called Warspite Enterprise, they have plot armor.
but at the same time, you get this is the thing with most places. If you get too close to the coast, you're on a risk of going aground. Along most of Narvik Fjord, if you get too close to the coast, you run the risk of slamming into a rock wall.
No, it's Fu and Runon, Fleet of Oceans and Runon, who are running the questions, I think, and Steve Clark is helping out as well. To make sure they get to the Discord.
And just for reference, you know, we can see questions on Dr. Clark's Discord. We can see questions on the screen to a limited amount as they scroll past.
They're scrolling past too quickly.
Yeah,
for us
we're
to
in
really-
we're in Narvik. I don't have access to my computer. I can't look back on that.
So this is why we're using the Discord and set up. It's logged into my account. So
And as a backup, I have.
Discord.
Okay.
Yeah. But we want him to save battery just in case he needs to start taking over the broadcast. In case this one, because what we find here is
My YouTube channel would explode.
The signal.
I have like
saps-
3 subscribers and 2 videos.
We've already burned through. Well, at this rate, we've burned through 3% battery in 6 minutes. So we're running through 1% battery every 2 minutes. So at the moment we have 76% left. So that gives us, in theory, actually quite a while. Like in theory, that would last 2 hours. I don't think my phone is going to last 2 hours live streaming.
No.
Yeah, we're not going to ask.
We're not.
Also, some people caught early flights here, and we've got plans for a relatively early start tomorrow as well. And
I'm supposed to be having breakfast at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and I've got to drive everyone.
And it's an hour ahead of my normal time here.
Yeah, it's a mess. So far, I haven't encountered mosquitoes. I'm sure I will.
I saw one smash into the windscreen. We ran into a few in Oslo.
So far, I've not been bitten.
The
by
Germans
anything.
had a bounty on sinking RMS Queen Mary. Did the Kriegsmarine officers have an unofficial deal in place with Warspite or any other famous Allied warships?
Well, the number of times they claimed to sink Ark Royal, I mean, it would have been spread out between so many people that it would have been like a token.
Yeah.
But Palle Rasmussen says he's disappointed we didn't go down to Roskilde to sail the Viking ships. Well, as with pretty much all of these tours, we've started off with a list of places and then gone, oh, there's a ton more places we didn't immediately know about. But as I've been saying on my Discord, for those of you who are of the Danish persuasion, we will, well, certainly I will definitely, I don't know about this
Yes,
one.
we will do Copenhagen 3.
Yes, we will be going to Denmark at some point next year
We'll
for an
come.
extended
We will
period.
see.
We'll be
Your
doing
ships.
Hamburg and
Yes.
we will be doing Kiel. I'm going to make these guys go to Kiel before we go to Copenhagen because you've got to do Kiel if you're doing Copenhagen.
And we're going to suffer through trying to work our way through a Type 7 submarine.
Oh, good lord.
Wait, we're having to do what?
We're going to go
There's a
Type
Type,
7 somewhere.
yeah, they've got a Type 7 in Germany.
Falco, the Germans, typical gunnery officer, US Rangers Air Group conducted a raid during Operation Leader at Bodo. Could they do the same if their target is Narvik? Would it be a threat for the USN aircraft raiding the fjord of target of opportunities? You could do it, but the trouble is with raiding fjords, as the Royal Navy will testify, because they did it a lot hunting for turbits, is that the steep sides allow for a lot of positions of AA fire to fire down on your aircraft coming in, which is kind of not a position they're really designed to survive being shot at from.
Well, and strafe ships' decks,
Yes.
which is also. This is the weird thing: is shooting down onto a ship's deck was an important tactic back when your standard projectile weapon was the bow and arrow, and it's continued to be a vital part of fighting a ship. Occasionally, some kind of big ranged weapon will come along that forces everyone to stay apart for a bit. And then everyone drifts closer and closer together again as defensive technology advances, and the whole raking the decks thing comes back in again.
Yeah. That's fun.
And yes, when we go to Denmark, we will of course see I think it's Jylland, the steam frigate, because, well, as far as I'm aware, it's the only fully intact steam frigate that's still around.
We're going
Because
everywhere we can go.
Unicorn, Constitution,
Yes.
and Trincomalee are all sail.
Yeah.
But Jylland is a proper, actual wooden steam frigate. So,
Unlike Warrior, which is we're going to call it a
Ironclad.
frigate, but it's actually a battleship.
but when we go, when we do make it to Denmark next year, definitely we'll be visiting both of those.
We'd love to go see what's left of Torpedo, but I don't think we're going to. This is the trouble. We start off with a big list of things, and then it's realistically is time to travel, time to actually do the things we're going to see properly, and how much we can fit within roughly 4 weeks, because we're away for 4 weeks, and then there's the cost of it all and working it out and putting all the plans together, and so that starts to thin out. You start out with a list which is this big, and you end up with a list that is this big, and you're still not going to get much time to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, because it's the same thing. We'd really have loved to see the triple 11-inch turret off for Gneisenau. But it's an absolute pig to get there. You know, yeah, we're in Narvik. We could fly to Narvik from Oslo.
We're going to see the Hashtag guns tomorrow, but again, it's a drive from Narvik. It's an hour and a half drive from Narvik, and it's the things like sort of we're going to the Bofors factory, Bofors Museum and Nobel Museum, and that's lovely. But that literally, we're going to Cartagena just for that, just to see that. And there's a place like Cartagena we're going to see, where there's a National Maritime Museum, which is a great collection. And when we're in Stockholm, we're going to see some of the forts to defend there as well, because I thought it'd be really interesting to see them, and they've got some interesting collections. But it's fitting it all in, and it's there's stuff like we're going to see we are going to see the veterans flotilla in Stockholm, and they are lovely. But they're on a military base, and so we have to have security clearances, and we have to basically have a whole base set aside for that, because there could be issues going in with if they want to check our systems, check our equipment, and those things. So again, it all eats into the time, and everything has to be organised. And I will spend, on average, when we're doing these trips, I will start emailing the next trip to start finalising dates, making contacts, and agreeing things in pretty much the August. So we go away June, July. Come back, I have about 2 weeks off, and then I start planning and prepping for next trip.
I mean, there's a whole museum. Well, there's several museums in Finland, but particularly there's one that's got over a dozen separate museum ships, all relatively small ones. It'll be absolutely fantastic to visit. And again, we'll be visiting next year, but there just wasn't the time. There wasn't the time on the schedule this year.
You'll be visiting next year.
Yes.
There are some of us who are staying slightly longer in Finland and might be getting to visit them this year.
I
There are
just
some
saw
of us who aren't managing to get at all.
Thomas
Some
Moreno.
of us might even be getting to Tallinn if people, hopefully.
The church bells have started, so apparently the Germans are coming back. Thomas Moreno asks, as a fellow Bolivian myself, hello, or should I say buenos dias, what do you know about the history of the Bolivian Oceanic Navy? Did they ever have a significant naval presence before they had the coastline rudely taken? It depends how far you go back, really, because Bolivia, proportional to when it became independent through to now, Bolivia lost its coastline relatively early in its history, as you probably know. Before that, the Bolivian Navy wasn't exactly huge. Weirdly enough, for a landlocked country, the Bolivian Navy still technically exists, patrolling Lake Titicaca, and more recently they've got a basing deal with Peru to base out of one of the old ports that Bolivia used to control, but Peru doesn't want to give back, but they will let you sail from it, which last time I checked, I don't know if they'd actually bothered to acquire an ocean-going ship to actually use out of that port. But on that general vicinity of things, one of the things I really want to look into, and it's entirely possible there may not be any surviving records or anything, but again, I know you probably understand this, but for the others, back when the Inca Empire was in control of the area, Tupac Inca, who's described as the South American Alexander the Great for very good reason, he is recorded to have when they got down and captured a good chunk of the West Pacific coast on what would now be Chile and Peru. He sent out a huge fleet of ships out into the Pacific. That's, as far as I know, that's all we know. So this massive fleet of balsa ships, dash rafts, dash sort of ships, all set out with a ton of Inca warriors and so forth, and local sailors and everything on them, headed out into the depths of the Pacific. We don't seem to have ever heard from them again, but
Good way of getting rid of some annoying generals.
but they would have ended up somewhere. Those things don't sink easy. So a storm destroying all of them is very unlikely. So I'd like to do further research and find out where on earth they fetched up.
Now, I'm going to be slightly naughty. I'm going to use one of these questions for a personal check because someone has said, "Hey, Drac, which day are you boys going to do the Fleet Museum in Gothenburg?" And I've given out hard copies of this trip.
Yeah, my copy's back in my room, and my digital copy is on the phone, which I'm currently using to speak with you.
You haven't given me my hard copy. I've produced my own.
Don't say I haven't given you a hard copy. There you go.
Right. So
We're at the Fleet Museum in Gothenburg on Sunday the
which is called
23rd.
Maritime, apparently. So that's Sunday the 23rd. The Gothenburg ship replica is on Monday the 24th, and the Viking exhibit in the Gothenburg City Museum is on Tuesday the 25th.
And please note, there are some museums which we're turning up to, and literally they are closed to everyone else. They're allowing us in that day as a special treat because they like us and because I might have twisted their arms and been very, very nice to them.
A typical gunnery officer saying, since I did a video on the Forrest Shermans, you're going to do a video on the Charles F. Adams. I'd have to have a look into it. The Forrest Sherman, or more specifically, obviously, the Turner Joy over in Seattle, that's Bremerton. That was a little bit of a special case because, one, it was a museum ship. It was there. It was literally outside my hotel. But also, by the rules of the channel, you can just about justify it because the Forrest Sherman class, technically you can trace their design and build lineage to just about my side of the 1950s rather than post 1950. The Charles F. Adams, I'd have to take a look because if its design history starts post 1950, that's going to be a technical violation, and if its thing is, this is the thing, and once you go past 1950, my knowledge drops off massively. If the Charles F. Adams are primarily or very strongly missile armed, there's not a huge amount I can say about them compared to if they're gun armed. But I'll have to have a look.
In answer to the question of BR classes 47, Tolkien Narvik, why would a Type 1936A close destroyer called the Narvik class by the Allies 1-2 and not the actual name? It's a bit of a being rude because they were finished off rather quickly because of the results of Narvik, and they also didn't get names. Because of that, they gave them numbers instead, which caused a lot of people to be upset. No, most importantly, their crews, who thought it was a grave insult. But basically, Goebbels made the case to Hitler that ships which don't have names, when they're lost, don't cause the same problems politically or photogenically as ships which have names. So basically, the Allies then called them Narvik class because after that, the Germans lost names to their destroyers.
A quick look at Wikipedia suggests that the Charles F. Adams class would be mostly talking about missiles.
Yeah, that would be a problem for me.
And radar systems that go AN/SPS dash.
That's more my thing
Which-
with key ships, where I can get away with stuff because of the way I structure key ships. I can
Yeah,
talk about
which
monitors.
we can deal with the what were they called
They're being fleet and run on our boat to getting them
Yeah.
across, so don't worry, any questions have been
yeah.
put across.
I'm just trying to frantically remember the.
Question for Michelle, question for Drac. With your 19 finish cut-off, are there things you have to skip that you personally enjoy but can't use for the channel?
Yes, because I would absolutely love to absolutely tear into the idiots who are in charge of Victorious' refit and who are in charge of the 1950s Royal Navy carrier program generally.
You're going to get to that because you and I are going to do a joint carrier
Yes,
video for
I
my
can do it on
carrier.
his channel,
Yes.
but by the rules of my own channel, I can't do it on my channel. You know, I can cover the history of HMS Victorious and talk about the fact they did screw a refit up, something rotten, but the whole UK carrier program in the 50s and 60s and how they stuffed up and how they should, not how they should have redone it, in my opinion. And I'd love to talk about it on my channel, but I can't break my own rule that badly, because then I'm opening the floodgates.
And that video is actually going to open up the series which I'm going to do over Christmas, which is going to be me talking with some great historians. I'm going to do Drac, I'm going to do Andrew Lambert, I'm going to do a few others as well. It's going to be fun, but he's going to be the one kicking it off.
He's not that old. You can't do a history of Andrew Lambert yet.
No, he's going to be on the channel talking away with me.
Oh, fair enough.
He said his one question was he couldn't be live, so if he said something weird, he could
Pre-recorded.
Yeah.
And Darth Revan, HMS Wager maybe, but for a long time in the future. For Anson's voyage, yes, that is something I do want to do. But having I've looked through Anson's voyage for preliminaries a few times, and I've decided it would be a mini-series again. So, given that I keep starting mini-series, we've got the next part of Johnny Walker's mini-series coming out in 3-4 weeks' time, and there's at least one more video to come from that, and then I've got at least 2 or 3 videos on Admiral Cunningham to do. So I don't want to start another mini-series in that vein before I finish those. Although, with that said, since the last of the Frigate Jewels of the War of 1812 is going up, not this coming Friday, but 2-3 weeks Friday, something like that, then I need a new Friday mini-series to do one a month of, and I'm currently torn between the Anglo-Dutch Wars and the Malta Convoys.
Well, do the Malta Convoys, because I'm planning one on the gunboat wars at some point, and there'll be more fun to see what comes up afterwards. Right, Luke Danforth, why did the Royal Navy not start raiding German ports as soon as the invasion of Poland started, as there was already commitments made to Poland by Britain? And would that not force an action 939? Raiding ports is not a great thing, and it's not something the Royal Navy in 1939 is really set up for. They have a lot of plans, but they haven't been able to build their plans. They haven't built enough landing craft. They haven't got the ships they wanted to. Remember, there are plans for landing platform dock-like ships back until the 1920s. The Royal Navy had lots of ideas about what they'd like for raiding ships. They just don't have them built. So actually doing that and having the forces to do it, the Royal Marines were structured around defending basically expeditionary bases and expeditionary positions which they would set up, not around raiding at that point. So that's part of the problem. And then this one's a great one from 1971 is, how did the Royal Navy's paranoia about aviation fuel management change in the jet age? It grew worse. It's just got worse.
Well, until you got to the Invincibles, but that's a whole other kettle.
Yeah, but on the Queen Elizabeth classes, it gets back to it again. The Invincibles is where it gets weird, but in Queen Elizabeth it's gone massively.
But the other thing with the raiding of ports is you've got to remember that 1939-1940, before the fall of France, you've got German ports and German occupied ports. Half of Germany's ports and all the occupied ports are in the Baltic, which means if you want to do raiding, that means you have to pass through the Skagerrak around Denmark, and that is a perfect place for the Germans to ambush you with Schnellboote, U-boats, aircraft and everything else. It's basically a suicide run. And pretty much... Shut up.
It's a container train.
Yeah. See, the iron ore train was nice and
quiet and discreet.
quiet.
The container train makes noise.
But
also,
the ports, the German ports that are worth going after on the west side of Denmark, they're all essentially protected by the Jade Estuary. I mean, back in World War One, even the High Seas Fleet had to time its exit and entry by the tides. If the Royal Navy's coming, it's going to have to plan its entry by the tides, which means the Germans, either you have to get the single
only
best
ships which could really do with the tribal class destroyers, and one flotilla of them's off covering the Indian Ocean and dealing with the potential of the Italians, and one of them was in the home fleet, and they don't have enough of those. Remember, they were planning by 1942 to have the Canadian ones in service, the Australian ones in service, and also the Royal Navy, and another batch of large gunnery destroyers built post that as well for the Royal Navy. So the thing is, you're catching them in 1939. None of the forces are ready for it in 1939-40. What the fleet could have done in 1942 if war held off till then is a completely different matter and a very interesting discussion, which you and I will probably have at some point, just to and probably with you along as well.
I mean, it's also that.
By the way, he has a channel. People forget he has a channel. It's a very good channel. He doesn't do many videos because not many people watch them, but he does do very good work when he does it.
The other thing, of course, is the Royal Navy had kind of been preparing to attack the major naval threat in harbour. It's just they were the Italians and they turned up late.
Yes.
Yes.
Why waste your strike on the Germans, who A, don't have much of a fleet, and B, the RAF are claiming to be destroying because they thought that 3 Blenheims flying somewhere roughly near Germany counted as a devastating bombing raid in the early war.
Yeah, and that's before we get into like things like minefields and stuff, which you'd have to navigate. But yeah, as Dan said, the thing is that in 1939, the biggest thing the Germans can throw out there as a threat to the Royal Navy is the Scharnhorsts. And well, as the action off Lofoten
I
showed,
don't know how to put up a link to my channel.
Go to your channel, and then can put it in the chat.
as the action off
I can't,
Lofoten
I don't think I'm going to.
Lofoten showed, the Scharnhorsts are not really. I mean, they're a threat to merchant shipping. They're not a threat to any of the Royal Navy's serious capital ships. Whereas the Italians have lots of battleships, actual like full-on proper ones. So they're slightly.
And they were good.
And they're actually well trained fleet as well. Carrot 1151. Would you want one of the ships the US is about to scrap to be kept as a museum ship, either as a warning or as a piece of history, and is a literal combat ship or a Tycho? Tycho. I'd love a Tycho to be kept because they've been a big part of the US Navy. They're not proper cruisers, but they've been a big part, and one of them should be preserved.
Although if I find whoever was running a bright green arc cutter and cutting bits out of the Vela Gulf, while I was looking at it, while New Jersey was being pulled into dry dock, and complete disregard for health and safety by exposing everybody to this actinic bright glare that hurt even at 300 yards, I will personally keel haul them under a Tycho.
Okay. Steve Clark, Darth Raven 3994. Have you ever considered doing a video?
That's
on
I
Voyager?
already answered that one.
You answered on.
Archbishop
Archbishop
Ben.
Benedict.
Oscarborg. Okay, how was Oscarborg?
Lovely.
Yes, very nice. The one thing that you'll need to know about Oscarborg is that it is actually quite small. You can literally walk one end. You can walk from the ferry landing stage to the other side of Oscarborg Fortress in about 3 or 4 minutes. If you're going lengthwise, because it's made up of 2 separate islands joined by a bridge, 10 minutes, if that. The other thing you have to know is some of the areas, like the torpedo launching battery, they're not off limits, but you can only get to them via guided tours. So you have to pre-book a guided tour to get access to some parts. But the main gun batteries, the fort that's got the history of the fort and the action there, etc., which is actually a really well done little museum. They're all open.
Would Norway have been able to modernise it in the late 1930s? Yes. They could have done easily.
It's just a big open fort. You just buy some more guns and stick them in.
Really, you've got Bofors right next door. They have a railway line straight from their factory all the way to your port. See, it's really easy to get delivery. It's not next day Amazon delivery, but it's going to be next week.
And some of the other batteries coming up the Oslo fjord, like Kopas battery, just over on the east side, they actually have relatively modern guns. They're just small. Because they're batteries, so they're 6-inch guns rather than a full fort, which can have 11-inch.
And if they don't been upgraded, would they have still considered training forts? Probably, but there's always a chance that they get it sensible. But the Germans do seem to be very good at intelligence black holes they create themselves. Battleground USA. Any of you could pick an ancient navy to command of current ship knowledge. Which navy would you choose, and what is the effect on mod history? Roman Navy, and I would be ruling the world by now.
Phoenician Navy, and I'd have kicked his ass.
Carthaginian Navy, because then I would take over from both. Actually, no. Technically, I'd be the descendant of the Phoenician Navy.
Yes, I was including the Carthaginians as Phoenicians.
And I'd still win because the Romans have the infrastructure and the industry and the bureaucracy to beat you both.
Yes, but I could have professionalised Carthage's military rather than relying exclusively on
Good luck with
mercenaries
their
and money.
internal politics.
That is professionals. You pay them, they fight for you. The definition of a professional.
Right, from Canada.
Or actually, no, I'd take the Sea People's Navy just so that we could find out what the heck they actually were.
From Chandelord Channel. Hey Drac, Dr. Clark, in one of your latest videos, the Kaiser goes full Navy, you commented that on that scenario the Germans would probably go diesel turbine. Wouldn't that affect hydrodynamics? Yes, but getting into that would be a fun thing. But basically, there was none in that scenario, which was a good idea. That was the whole point I started off with, saying that there's basically one narrow path which might not lead to the the hair, taking over and kicking the Kaiser out of power. And that is a very small, narrow path. And actually achieving that is going to be incredibly expensive. And constantly the whole way through, they're still going to be outbuilt by the Royal Navy. Because the one thing you always have to remember is the Royal Navy is able to vastly compete to overwhelm them in terms of numbers of construction, while still building a full balanced fleet. The Germans build what they build without building a balanced fleet, and that's the big problem with Jutland. They don't have a balanced fleet. The German fleet in the Kaiserliche Marine is a good fleet. They're well trained, they're well drilled, they're well motivated, but they're not a balanced fleet. And that's most of their problems.
And to be honest, when you look at the build rates, you know, at their absolute peak, the Germans were laying down 4 to 6 capital ships a year, depending on if you define a year as a calendar year or as a financial year. In response to that, the Royal Navy was laying down, again, depending if you look at financial or calendar years, 8 to 10 capital ships a year, and the shipyards were still asking for more work, and they were still building capital ships for the Ottomans.
Bankrupt.
Yeah, and they were building ships for the Ottomans and for the Chileans. You know, there was a lot of spare capacity if they wanted to pour money into it.
I did, for my video, I did a rough calculation on the back of a sort of envelope sort of thing, and I reckon the British could have probably, with the industry and infrastructure, maxed out at somewhere around 20 capital ships a year if they really wanted to push it. And that would have been them using every single yard that could build ships that size.
So no large merchant ships, no large liners, no capacity for, because that will include dry docks. So.
Yeah.
No capacity to refit, repair, and maintain your existing capital ships.
There was actually some capacity still for that, because, believe it or not, it included 3 yards which were derelict, had gone defunct, but hadn't been broken up or in any way scrapped. So they were all fine.
Steve, Augment Failure is asking a detailed video on how Blucher was felled by a pair of obsolete torpedoes. When I do the Oscarborg Fortress video that I filmed, then yeah, we'll probably go into that.
There's no such thing as an obsolete torpedo. If it hits and works, it's going to cause damage.
Well, it was an Admiral Hipper class.
So yeah. we've worked out that I'm the one who has to do the very dumbed down versions. Torpedo make hole in boat. Boat then let in water. Water in bad place. Water then in all place in ship. Ship join U-boat arm.
Ship join fishes.
U-boat
have to come up for air.
Occasionally.
The Royal Navy disagreed. And so did the Royal Canadians.
The green ticks on where we've done.
Okay, that's good.
So the F4K Mark M Phantom was late, overweight, and over budget because McDonnell Douglas and Rolls-Royce got their maths wrong. So how do you avoid that while keeping a British engineer for? Because going for a US engineer was seen as no patrol the UK or in the industry. You can't really. Trying to get major defence corporations and engineering corporations to talk to each other about proprietary information is like trying to drag people over glass. They don't want to do it. So it's always going to be a problem, and you're always going to spend all time basically debating with them. And yes, that was Garius going past, he's happy.
Turbofans and turbojets as well.
Yeah.
Plus it would have denied you the opportunity to find out what happens when you put a Phantom on a pogo stick.
Yeah. Michelle, let me rephrase the question for ship shape tours. Are there things you have to skip as you can't use them for the channel, but personally I'd like to see do?
Not really, because if I might not cover it from a pre-1950s perspective, but Dr. Clark will cover it from a post-1950s perspective, so we all get to see the thing.
Oh yeah, you don't get to care about the Speaker class torpedo boat that motored up when I was in Stockholm.
Because of the way
it wasn't incredibly pretty.
The thing is, because of the way our channels work and because of the way they're it actually makes it incredibly fun for us, because it means there's no useless footage. We can use everything, we can do everything, and we can split up the work, and we all just have fun with naval history.
Plus, to be honest, it's still naval history, so I still enjoy being on the ships and looking around them, like the O-class, the Oberons in Australia. It's just I can't use them for the channel, but that doesn't mean I can't enjoy. In fact, in some ways, I actually enjoy it slightly more because I can just look around and learn.
It's only me going, can you get some footage of that, please?
Yeah, rather than me having to
rather than Dracula going, what should we get? No, can you get? Have you got footage of that? Have you got footage of that? And we're sort of.
Yeah.
We also work it out every time we go on board a ship. We have a plan roughly of who's going to get footage from where. Usually it's me going down into the engine rooms and places like that because I'm good at crawling around those spaces. You of course got the drone, so usually he does the deck shots, and you do all the interesting specialist rooms. And usually will be found interviewing the crews, and because he is great at getting people to open up about everything. I mean, he uses his medical doctor ninja powers to get them to tell them their entire life stories. Everything will come out. Everything. You do not realize how much we have to edit out of those videos. I mean, there's stuff which, how do you get it out of them? It's just disturbing.
I mean, you have to take a full history of somebody's bowel habits to properly understand things.
Not quite that bad.
The legacies are asking, how has sleep been since you brought aboard the new midshipman? Interesting. I find myself able to sleep basically anywhere now.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you were able to do that when we were in Canada.
Yeah. But I now have advanced sleeping. It's like, well, the flight up here was an hour and a half. And hour and a half in short haul economy, where I'm about half again as wide on at the shoulders as the seat is, historically would have just been me sitting there glaring at everything and reading preloaded web pages, whereas now I'm just like, we're climbing, great, close eyes, sleep for 75% of the flight. But no, in all seriousness,
I was watching their videos.
Yeah, in all seriousness,
I was chatting away with the air hostesses.
Mini Drac is actually sleeping quite well now.
I was getting kids' toys from the air hostesses, some very nice little airplanes. Unfortunately, there was only 3 of them, so I got them for myself and the 2 Dans. I will try on the flight back to get the 2 for Drac and Garius because they all deserve them. Because Norwegian Airlines do these wonderful little model planes that are really cool to put together, but you can only get them when you're airborne.
And the other fun thing is about 6 weeks old, because Mini Drac is, what's the date today? 16.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So she's coming up to 12 weeks old, but from the age of about 6 weeks old, she had learned to speak one word, and one word only, and that word is hungry. And as she gets more and more distressed, for some bizarre reason, her accent becomes more and more northern. Which means if we're both sleeping in the morning, and she also got very, very sharp nails, so if we're both sleeping in the morning, and we haven't woken up to her initial request of going, hungry, hungry, I'll wake up to hearing, hungry, hungry, and the next thing I know is a vicious claw. She'll just slap me and then rake the side of my face.
What he doesn't know is Boom Boom Dan, aka the chemist, has been sneaking in every night when they're asleep to teach her proper English in his phraseology.
Yeah, Megascro, she hasn't learned to speak generally, but she knows what the word hungry is, and she knows the context of how to use it. So when she's hungry, she will tell us that she is hungry, and she will escalate through being, increasing levels of distressed pronunciation of it if we don't respond very quickly.
Look, for those wondering about the air hostess thing, I'm always chatting to the airlines because I'm trying to get an airline to sponsor us for these trips. It would make it so much cheaper. So much cheaper.
It has to be said, the other thing with the cabin crew, generally, it's not just air hostesses to be nice to. They put up with so much crap, and they bring you food
And drink.
and drink, and
they
they put up with so much, and just being a little bit nice to them can get you so much more in terms of quality of service and just being appreciated and things.
And
So it's worth it.
I always get exit row seats because I'm quite big. I'm quite happy to open the exit door, all those things, and that means the air hostesses tend to talk to you anyway. And there's always the phrase of, would you back us up? Would you have to do that? Yes. And I have in the past been asked by air hostesses and things when there's been issues on the plane to, do you mind helping out? Yes, I don't mind. I'm a big bloke. I will stand up and peer over your shoulder and smile in a very nice and polite, toothy manner at someone until they calm down. I'm quite happy to do that.
I, on the other hand, normally try and make sure I'm drunk on aircraft.
So people don't ask for a medic.
You have to be very ill. I'm a geriatrician.
He's Very good at getting the supply marker. As the DH-110 Sea Vixen was supposed to enter service in 1953, how much long delay it suffered can be blamed on the redesign caused by the crash of the airshow in 1952? To an extent, but more it was that when they had the opportunity to redesign, they decided to have some ideas. And that's always the problem. Every time you have an opportunity to redesign, as it happens with ships and same with aircraft, people have bright ideas.
Yeah, and this is where I can chime in a little bit in the post-1950s era, in that you've got to remember that in the 1950s, jet aircraft were advancing at a similar kind of technological pace to what ironclads were doing in the 1880s and 1890s.
See you later.
Because, you know, I mean, bear in mind that some of the designers who worked on the Avro Lancaster also worked on the Avro Vulcan. And the last forget Lincolns, because they were around for ages in their Shackleton form. But the last Lancasters hadn't actually officially left Royal Air Force service when the first Vulcans entered service. And you look at those two, you couldn't possibly imagine that they'd been designed by the same people, let alone less than a couple of decades apart. So, I mean, you know, at the start of the 1950s, the height of technology is things like the Thunderjet and the Sea Venom. By the end of the 1950s, you've got supersonic Delta Wing fighters. I'm not sure exactly when Area Rule came in, but you know, look at the peak of jet fighter technology in 1950 and the peak of jet fighter technology in 1960. That they are worlds apart. So, if you've got any excuse to do a quick redesign in the 1950s,
you do it.
You're going to do it. I mean, apart from things, just even things like radar.
Yeah. They did all sorts of things.
Just everything.
Steve Clark, question on the MGBs, which were stripped down to run freight from Sweden during World War II, how much could they actually carry?
Lancasters with fueling, by the way. That was the big changes they made in them, was how much fuel they could carry.
Yeah. And well, with the MGBs, they could carry, I think it was about 2 tons, wasn't it, of they had it spread around the hull, but it was 2 tons of ball bearings, I think, roughly, once they stripped them down. Basically, they didn't quite use up all the weight of the torpedoes they could have carried. Funko, odd question, but which ship boat has caused the most trouble after it sank? I'm fairly sure that's the one sitting in the Thames.
The one that's a 4 kiloton bomb waiting to go off.
Oh, I can't remember what it's called. Can anyone remember?
Oh, I cannot remember. It's,
The Montgomery.
Montgomery,
Yeah.
John F. Montgomery or something like that.
Yeah.
The Montgomery is overrated
Runon.
in terms of
We answered that one.
Yeah.
Runon. Someone tongue in cheek, but previous Dr. Klaus asked which ship shape members would be slotted into what positions in his dictatorial cabinet. I was put under Drac. In what capacity were I serving as the new naval world order? Axie Sparky. If I remember correctly, I said that I would make Garius the Minister of Transport, and I'd make you Minister of Defence. Good luck.
I would have the Fisher office for extreme threats.
And
But the best
he's
defense is
going
not
in-
necessarily a good defense, or vice versa. The best way of ensuring peace is to appear to be such a heavily armed, off-the-wall lunatic that nobody ever wants to dare cross you, on the grounds you might burn the earth and salt the fields just because they looked at you funny.
Yeah. Would you prefer a preserved CV6 Enterprise or CVN-65 Enterprise?
CV6.
6.
With the best will in the world, the nuclear enterprise is all nice and good, but she's never seen peer-on-peer combat.
And also that there's enough old reactors in her I really prefer they were dealt with.
Well, they've
Yeah,
taken
and
them
you
out. They've
just
taken them out
to-
now, but the problem is that that's gutted the ship to do
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So just to chip in back in on the SS Montgomery, so it's in the Thames, it's the ammo ship that's lurking there. If you want a really, really good read, dig out the specification document for the plan for Boris Johnson's Thames Estuary Airport.
Oh yes.
It has a full assessment within it of why you shouldn't build an airport over a sunken,
Over a 4 kiloton bomb.
ammo ship, with all the impacts and graphs of where that explosion would go.
That-
So weirdly, like sometimes the best documents are not military documents, the best documents are transport documents. So dig out the full assessment for the Thames Estuary Airport if you really want to look at
And
how big a boom
that's
that would
basically a
create.
good reason why the Thames Estuary Airport would never happen.
Also, if you want to spend a night in the cells, take a small boat out towards the wreck of the Montgomery.
You'll be
and-
picked up remarkably
Yeah,
quickly.
you'd be surprised just how fast the police and Coast Guard boats can move if you get within half a mile. of
Oh, you
them.
get within the buoys. You're all right on the other side of the buoys. I've been out there plenty. But Go inside those buoys, you're done.
Yeah. And just remember, just behind them are boats which have even less friendly people on them.
You're into people falling out of helicopters at your territory, basically.
Yes.
Augment failure potential for a detailed video on how my blue
we already said.
Yeah,
No,
done
no,
that
it's on
one.
Railcount. The guns still in place in Oscarborg. I assume they were removed at some point. The guns were still there.
Huh?
But are the guns still in place in Oscarborg?
No, they're all still there.
They're all still there.
You've got the 3 11-inch guns that were active. You've got what looks like an 11-inch gun in a part-built state, although whether that's an active gun or replica or whatever, I took a lot of pictures of the Norwegian information plate, but didn't get a chance to translate them. There's a trio of 8.5-inch Armstrong guns from the 19th century. There's some what looks like more modern field artillery. I think that's just there for saluting ceremonies and stuff. The museum has a few of the old cannon from even before the Armstrong guns. So
It is now starting to rain.
the really old stuff is still there, is gone, but anything that's like 1880 afterwards is definitely still there.
How waterproof is your laptop?
Not very.
Rain stops play.
So we're going to, unfortunately, it
We're
looks
going
like
to be very, very British.
we're going to have to
And
stop
rain will
here
stop
because
playing.
otherwise there's laptops, everything's going to short out. So sorry guys, weather has killed this stream.
Yeah.
We'll try and do some others during this trip, and hopefully we'll be more sensible and either pick a place where it's not raining,
Or where we've got an umbrella.
or where we're indoors.
I have a very nice
It will be
cabin
fun.
on our Helsinki ferry we can do.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
the point. We'll be on the Helsinki ferry. We've got plenty of time. So I'm just going to leave you, everyone, before we all run inside and try not to drown, with this shot. So yeah, if you had any really pressing questions, then next time I do a live dry dock, obviously we'll try and just remind me of some of them, and I'll try and catch up. But yes, so for those of you who weren't here at the beginning,
There's some questions on my channel.
the twin pillars, the twin spiky pillars you can see there on the right, that's the bridge over the entrance to Rombox Fjord, where Eskimo lost her bow, and where
One of the bows.
Bernard von Arnim and Georg Thiele are still there. That's Narvik Fjord, that's 2 of the oar boats over this little island bit of Narvik. That on the other side, that's where the wreck of Eidsvold is, and where the wreck of the destroyers from the harbour are still. And that is Narvik Harbour, and that's the railway with the iron ore trains, which is what all the fighting was about. So yeah, there's the sun, there's the rain clouds,
And there are the mountains with snow, and there was us with the ice creams and leaving sun cream.
yes. So thanks very much everyone. Sorry it's suddenly being cut short, but gets a bit of a taster of what you've got to look forward to when we get back and start producing videos.
It's
So,
going to be fun.
see you around once I figure out how to stop this stream.
Press the X.